Live from downtown Detroit, home of WDIV and Click on Detroit, Local 4 News at 6 starts now.
The rising gasoline price is showing no signs of slowing, and now the president is promising action. But Governor Whitmer and others are asking for even more. Today's move by the U.S. to ban Russian oil imports is driving prices to record highs.
In a moment, we're going to look at what that means for the auto industry, but first, the latest developments. Right now, the national average price for a gallon of gas is at a record $4.17. And to counteract the surge in prices, Governor Whitmer and others are calling for a repeal of the 18-cent per gallon federal gas tax. Today, President Biden says he'll do everything he can to minimize what he called Putin's price hike, including releasing more of America's own oil supply. When gas prices do spike, we here in Motown feel the ripple effects because the domestic three sell primarily trucks and SUVs.
That's right. So what are we looking at now? Looking forward for truck sales. For some answers, we turn to Local 4 business editor Rod Maloney in Southfield.
It hasn't taken long to figure out it costs a lot more to drive these days. In fact, Cox Automotive is saying that if you're driving a pickup truck or even a large SUV, you're probably spending $100 more a month. But when we consider the old rules about high gasoline prices and low truck sales having a major impact on us, turns out that's not the case so far. They offloaded new vehicles at Glassman, Hyundai, Kia, Mitsubishi today. These small cars all of a sudden looking better to the high gas mileage consumer. Yet owner George Glassman says the industry is in a uniquely historic spot.
Demand is through the roof on all vehicles,
keeping used and new vehicle prices sky high, along with demand. His inventory a small fraction of what he'd normally have.
I don't think you're going to see a tremendous change in what we've got now just because supply and demand is as tight as it is.
And while President Biden decided to forego Russian crude, Tradition energy analyst Gary Cummings sees
the prohibition against crude oil from Russia shouldn't have a huge impact on our supply.
Because we do have other places to buy, and Russia only supplies about 10% of what we use daily.
It's a great gesture. We don't necessarily think it will do much to further increase oil prices or gasoline prices at the pump here in the U.S.
Maybe a few pennies. So things might seem stable for now, but this will have a cascading effect down the line. Diesel is now nearing $5 a gallon, and the trucking companies delivering our goods will soon tack on fuel surcharges, says oil price information services analyst Denton Sinclagrana.
Whether it's gasoline, diesel, eggs, bread, Air Jordans, you mention it, you name it, the prices are going up.
Which means inevitably trouble on the horizon.
I think we're staring down the barrel of a recession.
Which is clearly a sobering assessment, and there isn't much the White House can do. Maybe they can cut the gasoline tax or even make a waiver so they don't have to make summertime blend. But even at that, gas prices are likely to remain right where they are. In Southfield, Rod Maloney, Local 4.
Hey, Rod, thank you. Well, people are asking a lot of great questions about what's happening with gas prices, how long it might last, and what our elected leaders could be doing about it. Priya Mann is live with some of those questions. And Priya, we heard President Biden mention releasing some oil reserves, but we're at the point here where some people are thinking twice about driving at all.
Yeah, that's right, Kim. I talked to one woman and she said she doesn't know if she can drive to work anymore. She's going to ask if she can go back to remote. Another told me she's seriously considering carpooling. We're here in Livonia. Let's give you a look with Drone 4 at the Costco gas station here. We've got a significantly long line here. In some cases, it actually extends the entire length of the parking lot. Folks here paying around $3.84 for regular, a little bit lower than we've seen at other gas stations. But of course, you're paying into a membership here. Gas prices is one part of the story, but oil analysts have concerns about the big picture that this could ultimately lead to a recession.
The one thing no one is talking about right now is diesel prices. And diesel prices are quickly approaching $5 a gallon. Everything moves around, whether it's by trucks, whether it's by trains, by the use of diesel.
The cost for everything from milk, eggs, bread, gas, you name it, will be impacted by rising oil prices.
A lot of food is high now. Like a lot of things have went up.
Experts say the pain at the pump could just be the beginning.
I normally Instacart, so I know that has a big impact, and I don't really Instacart anymore because the gas prices is high.
So why not increase oil production here in the U.S.? William writes, start by repealing the Jones Act so we can ship U.S. oil to U.S. ports.
The Jones Act is the real political football here. You waive the Jones Act, it could really reduce the price of moving goods, particularly oil and refined products.
The Jones Act is a law that requires any ship moving from one U.S. port to another be an American-flagged ship with a U.S. crew, but that makes them more expensive.
Shipping companies probably love the Jones Act, whereas, importers and exporters and people who are moving goods and products probably hate it.
For the immediate future, prices like these seem to be the new norm.
The prices just shocked me. It's getting ridiculous.
You kind of have to choose what you want to do. Do you want to get gas or do you want to get food?
And there have been significantly long lines here at the Costco gas station all afternoon. Folks here paying slightly less at $3.84. Of course, you do have that membership. They're just trying to take advantage of any price they can. There are fears that prices could hit $5 a gallon. There's also concerns about price gouging. Everyone from President Biden to AG Nessel are warning against the practice. Now, historically, AG Nessel says that the small gas station owner isn't the one seeing profits. It's usually higher up in the supply chain. But if you have concerns about price fixing or price gouging, they want to hear from you. We have info on how to reach the AG's office on clickondetroit.com. In Livonia, I'm Priya Mann, Local 4.
Okay, Priya, thank you.
As Russian attacks intensify in Ukraine, the humanitarian crisis gets substantially worse. Several attempts to evacuate civilians failed earlier this week, and Western leaders are accusing Russian forces of targeting pre-approved safe routes. According to the United Nations, nearly 500 civilians have been killed since the war began, but it's believed that number is much higher. 2 million people have fled Ukraine, more than those who left Syria in the first 3 years of the civil war there. And while all those people have left, there are others who simply can't get out. One of them is the teenage daughter of a Wayne State researcher who spoke with our Paula Tutman today. And Paula, this father suddenly forced to use some of the knowledge he's amassed in his work.
Yeah, this is really, really unsettling. So we're talking about cause and effect here. And earlier, Rod and Priya were talking about the cause and effect of gas prices. You can see them right here in Washington Township, $4.25 per gallon. But imagine this is the stuff that you can see. We're talking about the stuff you can't see, like this dad who is divorced. His daughter is in Ukraine along with his ex-wife and mother-in-law.
We implemented the first wave of the longitudinal study with Ukrainian children and families to see the natural development of children.
At Wayne State University, there's been important research going on for 3 years studying the mental health of children when their adults are embroiled in war. When Russia crossed the border into Ukraine, Dr. Victor Borlaka of the social work department actually became part of his own research.
You're watching the news all the time, the footage that comes from the battles there in Ukraine. And I do have sometimes nightmares where I wake up and it seems like the war is here. This is an interesting way for me, as someone who has been working with trauma for a long time and teaching clinical classes, to experience it.
His 17-year-old daughter, Lisa, is cornered in Kiev with her mother and grandmother. And he says what he's hearing on the other end of those less and less frequent phone calls is his family shutting down.
As a father, someone who took care of my daughter when she was a baby, and I was bottle feeding her. I was the one who didn't sleep the nights. I held her in my hands. The fear of being stuck somewhere, being killed in the street. And so the more we talk about it, they want to leave.
Throughout Metro Detroit, there are friends, families, and loved ones with friends, families, and loved ones trapped in Ukraine, like Dr. Olena Daniluk.
I'm just screaming to all of our legislators to provide a no-fly zone because Third World War's already started, and many countries are involved in it. So all countries have to stand up, and they have to make a decision to protect Ukraine from the sky.
Yeah, we talk about this cause and effect. There's the pain that you see, the pain at the pump. There's the pain that you don't see, and those are our neighbors who have these family connections in Ukraine, and they are deeply, deeply hurting. Back to you.
What a terrifyingly helpless feeling that must be for that father. Paula, thank you. At 6:30 tonight on NBC Nightly News, Lester Holt is on the ground in Ukraine with a look at the war effort from women. You'll see how an art center has been turned into an assembly line where women are ripping fabric into strips. then taking the pile of cloth and creating a mesh wall to be used as camouflage. Tonight at 6:30. The stories of the women and children staying in Ukraine as fighting intensifies. Ahead at 6:30 on NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
A jury has been selected in the federal trial of 4 men accused of plotting to kidnap Governor Gretchen Whitmer. That process began and wrapped up today in Grand Rapids. Local 4 defender Sean Lay is there live with some interesting questions used to whittle down that jury pool. Sean.
Good evening from Grand Rapids to you, Kimberly. Look, this jury pool today involved people like teachers, HR managers, nurses, road commission employees, and more. They face hundreds of questions, as you mentioned, Kimberly, from all sides of the courtroom today to determine what kind of jurors they would be. Adam Fox, Barry Croft, Daniel Harris, Brandon Caserta, facing life in prison if convicted for their alleged roles in the alleged plot to kidnap Governor Gretchen Whitmer. The stakes of today's first day of their trial in federal court in Grand Rapids were incredibly high, and that's jury selection. After a number of potential jurors were dismissed for revealing that they do not like Governor Whitmer, others saying they believe the men are guilty, the focus late today was on the remaining jury pool. Federal prosecutors first to ask the potential jurors questions. Nearly all the jurors are gun owners and strong supporters of the Second Amendment. Some said guns are good for people. One said he has distrust in the legal system. Federal prosecutors wanted to know if any get their news from Facebook, where conspiracy theories and hate groups form. Defense attorneys wanted to know if anyone was offended by rough talk, hinting to the defense that the group talked tough, talked violence, but it was all just talk. Did anyone have questions about government credibility, leaning towards if the jurors would have issues with paid FBI informants, how credible their undercover information would be to them? One woman who was dismissed due to scheduling issues tells me the jury coming together, she believes, is a good one.
I think what they've got up there right now as far as a jury looks like they're pretty unbiased.
Jury selection now over. The trial begins tomorrow. Many of the jury pool told the judge today that their jobs and family obligations simply would not allow them to have be a part of a 6-week-long trial. The judge did dismiss those potential jurors. Also, Governor Whitmer chimed in on this today, saying she is not going to follow every twist and turn of this trial. She says she is far too busy with her job as governor. We're live tonight in Grand Rapids. Sean Lay, Local 4, back to you.
We understand that, but we will be indeed covering it. Sean, we appreciate it.